Okay, so yesterday I did um, the favorite writers book tag challenge, and while I was doing it, picking the books and recording the video, I felt like I was only doing half the challenge. Um, I kind of feel like anytime you're talking about your favorites and being discriminating, there's that implication of writers that you don't like. Get out of there! Out! 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 Come on! Come on! Stop it! There's cats. Um, so I came up with kind of categories of my favorite writers that I don't like for various reasons. And I came up with some parameters just to keep it varietal. So the first one is books that I read, writers that I read consistently, and consistently don't really like their books. The second category is books that writers that I've grown out of, writers that I really loved when I was younger and not so much now. The next category is writers that I still love, but kind of never enjoy reading it. And then the last category is just writers that I don't really like at all. So I'll just get started. The first writer is Will Self. He's this I guess he's like an English writer, and I've never really liked any of his books, but for some reason I just keep looking forward to like when he has new stuff coming out. He has such a pedantic way of writing. He always loves the biggest, strangest words, which I think is kind of a hoot, because you never really know what he's talking about. It's a book that he's a writer that I like, that I really wouldn't recommend to anybody. Next is Ezra Pound, who, with his poetry, is just complete madness. And this is the kind of book that I like kind of keeping out, and I can pick it up to any page and read it and just think like, yeah, like you're still crazy, Ezra. And in a lot of ways I enjoy it. I'll sit there and read it and really not know what he's talking about. But yeah. The next writer, actually I just recently did a video, but it's Emile Zola. I have a real fondness for French writers. I love dirty French books. They're a real blast. And I've read maybe 6 or 8 of his books. And like, to give you an idea, like I couldn't even name a character of his. He turns out to just not be very memorable. I think he has a tough time writing characters, but I keep reading them for some reason. Maybe I'll end up liking them. The next person is, the next writer is Shakespeare. I have this terrific cover. It's Mr. T, and it says some kind of bard ass. He's another one I read pretty consistently. 80% of the time I really feel like I don't get very much out of him. But there's these moments where I feel like I'm in a trance, or just I guess in the right in the right headspace, where I'll be elevated to like the best thing that I've ever read. But most of the time I don't like them. In general, I don't like his comedies, but the tragedies can be amazing if I'm reading it when I'm in the right mood. I have 2. The next category, I just picked 2, and it's writers that I've grown out of. Uh, First one is William S. Burroughs. Um, I think he was one of the first writers that I came across that was experimental. He had that uh, cut up series, um, and vulgar, like kind of grossly vulgar. Um, and I just remember reading him and thinking like, wow, like isn't this dirty and dangerous and something I had never seen before. Um, but it doesn't hold up. I mean, I've gone back to him and kind of felt like it was obviously not profound, but just kind of juvenile. The book that I'm holding is The Western Lands, which is a part of his um, trilogy that he kind of wrote later in life. I think it's one of his best work. But yeah, Daphne. The next writer that Kevin, if you're watching this, or anyone that really knows me, I think will be surprised. Um, is actually Oscar Wilde, and 10 years ago, I strongly believe that he would have been on my favorites list. Uh, I mean, I had such strong opinions about just how how much he. I used to think he was a perfect writer. He had perfect plays. He had a perfect novel. Um, the Ballad of Reading Gaol still was really powerful, but like the Picture of Dorian Gray, the dialogue's good, but the story itself is sort of like the standard pot boiler. Um, and I've gone on to find out that there's a lot of writers that actually influenced him and he kind of copied, that did much better in the things that he was trying to do. Um, they're mostly French writers like Maupassant and Flaubert and Gautier, Théophile Gautier. Um, and yeah, and the plays are not as funny to me as they used to be. That might change, but kind of grown out of them. The next category is writers that I love but don't really enjoy. And that's going to be William Faulkner and Henry James. And they're two of the most impressive writers, but kind of between them, it's almost like they can't write a straightforward sentence, as if they're incapable. They just can't do it. And it's a labor to get through. It's normally my remembrance of reading any of their books that really reminds me how great they are. But yeah, I mean, I don't enjoy reading them. The next category is writers that I just don't really like. And I think if you're watching this, you've gotten the impression that I'm not talking about writers that are just trash or just like obviously something that I wouldn't read. These are all writers that I respect and admire and enjoy aspects of their works, but overall I have more of a negative opinion than positive. So, Daphne. The first one I'm going to say is actually James Joyce. I don't think that he's nearly as groundbreaking and powerful and monumental as I've kind of been led to believe. I think some of his best work are some of the short stories in Dubliners. I liked Portrait of a Lady. Ulysses is readable, and then Finnegan's Wake is unreadable. But he also has like a terrible play, terrible poetry. Really kind of hit or miss for me. It is not enjoyable. Like I don't see myself in the foreseeable future like really needing to pick up Ulysses again. So that's that. The next writer is David Foster Wallace, which in just in general I don't think is very good. Not to me, this wasn't relatable. Um, Extremely frustrating. Um, I don't. I mean, I've seen interviews with him, and I don't think that he's is a snob, but his writing does kind of come off snooty. Um, whatever he was doing with the footnotes, um, I just thought was annoying. And I feel like he just always takes so long to say something. Um, Better writers just figure it out. I don't know. Okay, the next writer is Vladimir Nabokov, which I have some friends that really love him, and I do not. I've never really. There's very little in anything that he's written that's knocked my socks off or gave me a hint of this amazing writer. It's funny, like on the backs of these things, it always says like the greatest stylist of the century or whatever, and I always think that like you know Nabokov slipped someone some money. The only book that I kind of liked is Invitation to a Beheading, and the only reason I think is that it's Kafka-esque, and I would recommend kind of anything by Kafka before this book. Like, it's just sort of like a little spot on the side of another great writer that's better. Number 2 is John Steinbeck, who is a lot of people's favorite writer, and I have a couple friends that love him. I have friends that hate him too. But he's boring, and just everything that I've ever read by him, slow, stupid. It's funny, I get so frustrated with him with all of his descriptions, and there's other writers that are extremely descriptive, that I think is remarkable, and he just does not do it for me. I picked up East of Eden, which I hated, and I had a friend ask me if I caught the biblical allusions in the book, which I just thought was hilarious. Like, yeah, I didn't need to catch it. And this was really an ascending list, but this is probably my least favorite writer. And it's kind of, well, anyway, Aristotle. I think he was just like the biggest know-it-all that got like everything wrong. And he just thought that he knew everything about everything, every topic he had to write about, and he was so definitive. He had to have these systems. I get the impression that he like just screwed with people's heads for like centuries. Something like this coming off of like Plato that would have these dialogues that ended open-endedly, to Aristotle just saying that he has all the answers. It's a constant source of annoyance, and probably a writer that I don't imagine wanting to pick up ever again. That obviously could change, but I just don't see it. All these other writers that I mentioned, there's admirable qualities. And kind of the only thing is that Aristotle was very influential in a lot of the French playwrights, is what he wrote about, poetics and the structure of plays. Um, Produced a lot of great plays, but he was still wrong about that though, because there's all kinds of plays that don't follow his rules that are terrific. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend him to anybody. So that's it. If you enjoyed watching this, I guess let me know. Other people that like recording lists of things, feel free to do the same thing if you want, or change my categories. I'd be interested to know what other people think. And thank you for watching. And that's it.